Full disclosure, I've had MG for over 30 years, about 31 years, and I've never spoken in a forum like this about MG. I've had a lot of speaking experience in things like urban redevelopment, and you're not in the wrong presentation this morning. I'm not going to talk too much about urban redevelopment, but I was thinking about my career and how it actually aligns a little bit with positive human development. In urban redevelopment, we focus on blighted, desolate areas. And we try to look for the good features of the area or a building. And we pull out the good features and we try to focus on those. And we look at the negatives, we address the negatives, but we're trying to build something on all of the positive features to create and rebuild a better area, something better than perhaps it was before. And this kind of aligns with the idea of positive human development, right? Because what we're doing is we're looking at the challenges. We have to address our challenges. They're there, they're going to be there. And this goes for anybody. If somebody has MG, doesn't have MG, everyone has life challenges. So we look at those negatives, those challenges, we try to address them, and then we try to focus on the positive and kind of bring that level of all of our innate assets and strengths and bring those more into focus. And ideally, we're going to build more meaningful and enriching lives in doing that. So the question is, how do we do it? And really, why do we do it? Is it really that important to focus on the positive? Well, we know that researchers will tell us it is pretty important. It increases our lifespan. It decreases stress, which is always good for someone with a chronic illness. It gives us better coping skills. It gives us better heart health. And it has a potential impact on our neural pathways in our brain. And that's some research that's being done by places like Max Planck Institute. They're seeing that there is a positive influence on neural pathways. And of course, it helps our overall well-being. Now, I wish that I could stand here and tell you that positivity is going to be a cure for myasthenia gravis. How many of you have heard that from an aunt, a well-meaning friend, that positivity is just going to cure you? If you just were happier and thought happy thoughts, everything was going to be okay, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case, but it does make us feel better. And really, what's the alternative? If we're not positive, well, then we're probably going to end up chronically negative. And negativity doesn't bring such great things. It shortens our lifespan. It increases stress levels, which we know is not good for MG. It's not good for any kind of autoimmune disease. It's just not good for our bodies. It causes systemic health issues, lots of gastrointestinal problems, heart issues. It also has negative social impacts, unfortunately. And it causes chronic negative changes in the brain. More research that they're finding. If you're chronically negative, it's going to cause changes in the brain that can impact your body. We have some choices in life. When faced with life-altering challenges, like MG, or any life challenges, we have a choice. We can either proceed in a negative manner, or we can proceed positively, right? But we're still going to have myasthenia gravis. It's still going to be there, or the challenge is still going to be there. We don't get a choice in the disease or the challenge. What we do get a choice in is how we live our lives, and if we want to move forward positively or negatively. I, for one, would prefer to be more on the positive side. I don't know about you guys. I'm figuring because you're here, we're going to proceed with the thought that you'd like to move on in a positive manner as well. So, how do we do that? I still have a lot of fear, anxiety, sadness, anger. I'm really good at throwing pity parties for myself sometimes, but I'm still going to choose to focus on the good and the positive and see that glass as half full. But we still have to work on it. And to work on it, it begins with a thought. Almost every feeling and emotion that you have is actually rooted in a thought. Almost every feeling you have is rooted in a thought. And bear with me, I want to give you a little example and play with me a little bit here. I'd like for you all to close your eyes and don't fall asleep on me, unless you really need sleep this morning, because I heard it was a fun night last night. But close your eyes for a moment and think of a happy memory. Think of something that brings a really important moment in your life. It could be a great vacation, a promotion that you got, your first kiss, if it was a good one. If it was a bad one, don't think about it. A marathon you finished, a major life accomplishment, whatever it is, just stay in that moment. And you all can't see it, but I'm seeing some smiles emerge on some faces. Am I right? Is that moment a happy moment for some people? How many are feeling pretty happy when you think about that moment? Yeah, that thought, that memory that you brought up impacted your emotions. And when it impacts your emotions, to take it one step further, that goes and impacts your body. That feeling of joy that you have, it's actually impacting your body as well. So then we go back to our choices. Are we going to choose to stay chronically negative, or are we going to choose positivity? You've got the blue negativity on one shoulder, right? We'll just call her blue because, again, I don't want to get in trouble for using that picture. We'll call her blue. And then on the other shoulder, you've got this happy, joyous being there. Blue is like a weed. Blue is going to grow no matter what you do. You've always got food for blue, right? We've always got worries. We've always got fears, no matter MG, not MG. We've always got something to feed blue, and that's just going to grow and grow and grow. Joy is like a rose, and it needs your constant attention and thought. It needs nurturing to grow and develop and really take on a bigger role in your life than the negativity. The challenges are still going to be there, but we'd like to have a big, beautiful rose among a few of the weeds, right? So how do we do that? And I thought about this a lot, and the best way I can tell you how to do it is to use examples from my own life. I have seronegative MG, so I went through a really hard time in the beginning with diagnosis. I went 11 years undiagnosed, which left me completely debilitated. In my 30s, I finally got a neurologist that diagnosed me. I got treatment, and I felt on top of the world. I felt better than I'd ever felt in my life. I started on a new career path. Everything was wonderful. And I was sitting down with a business associate, and I was talking about buying a house. And this person, Roy Assad, he actually happens to be a life coach. I wasn't there for coaching. I was just there for lunch. But I was telling him about that I'd like to buy a house, but I really couldn't because I had MG. And then I went on to tell him all of the things that I can't do because I have this disease. And there's no way, even though I feel good right now, I can't buy a house, I can't buy a car, I can't travel, I can't have a family, I can't get married, all of these, my list, I was rattling down. And Roy just stopped and looked at me and he said, "But what if you can?" And I said, "No, I can't. I was really sick. You don't understand. And I don't want to go back to that place ever again." And he said, "But you're sitting here in front of me. you look perfectly healthy, you're working, you're having a great time, your life is going well, and what if you're passing up all these things and you actually can do them? And I thought about it and I thought, gosh, I was probably developmentally traumatized by my experience in my 20s. And what if I can do that stuff? And I started kind of mapping out some goals and balancing what I was physically able to do with goals that I wanted to accomplish in life. And things went pretty well. All was great. I got the house, I got the car, I married the guy, I traveled, I became executive director of the place that I was working for. I worked really hard to do that and lots of hours. And then I found myself at 40, I was pregnant, surprisingly. And that's a story for another time. But I have a wonderful 10-year-old daughter now as well. So I think about all of that. And if I had allowed MG to stay so prominent in my life and all my worries and all the weeds to keep growing, I would have missed out on some amazing life opportunities. I did have very well-controlled MG at the time, and so for me, the I can't to I can was more of just like a brain shift. I had to start living life. I had to start living life, in a positive manner. I had to change my brain. And I would love to tell you that that's the end of the story, and all you have to do is say, I can instead of I can't, and everything's going to be wonderful. But unfortunately, this is real life, and real life gets messy, and we are hit with life challenges, and unfortunately, my life challenge, I had some bigger battles to fight. I developed a heart infection when my daughter was 2 years old, and I spent 18 months in and out of the hospital, and it's still really emotional for me. That thought brings up a lot of emotions for me. I was mainly in the hospital. I wasn't home all that much, and life was really, really messy, and my husband and I were completely overwhelmed and scared, and there were so many times that I just sat in the hospital and thought if I just closed my eyes, I was just going to die. And I think some of you have experienced that before. I was in a really dismal place. Life was definitely quite messy, and my cup was empty. It just completely spilled all over the place. But what could I do? I could have wallowed in that really sad place because I really only wanted to wallow in that sad place. I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't dress myself. My mom and my husband had to dress me. I had to be hosed down in a cold shower because I couldn't tolerate anything warm at all. I couldn't walk at all. I was bedridden and I was in a wheelchair. So what did we do? We called in help because my mental state was not good. My husband's wasn't good. Thankfully, we had family and friends from near and far that came to help us. And self-care and knowing when you need support, professional support, is a very important part of this process. So we called in help, and my brother and sister called the MGFA. And they spoke to a wonderful person from a support group in St. Petersburg that said, you need to get your sister over to see the doctor that I now refer to as the Wizard. Does anyone know who the Wizard is? You can yell it out if you know. Yes. I went over to see Dr. Weiss in St. Petersburg, and it was a 4.5-hour drive there. And we were so terrified because we didn't even know if I could make it on the drive without needing to go to a hospital. But getting that help from the MGFA and going to a doctor that really knows about MG probably is what saved my life and allows me to stand here and talk to you guys right now. I really don't know where I would have been without the MGFA, steering me and my family in that direction. I still had to trust my doctor and listen to what he said and trust that even though it might take months for the immune suppressants to work, that probably I was going to be okay and that he would keep working for me until I was okay. So I still had to go home and get through being basically completely paralyzed. I couldn't do anything, and I just had to wait and wait and wait. Thankfully, I had a counselor that I could call on the phone. This was about 10 years ago, so that was kind of rare that you could get a counselor that would counsel you on the phone, but now there's a lot of other options. There are crisis lines that you can text. You can get online counseling for professional help. And of course, as Nancy mentioned, the MG Friends groups, you can get to speak to another MG or person to person if you need help and support. So I did get that support, but I still needed more. I needed to dig down deep and do something to find my joy, because I knew it had to be there somewhere. So for me, written reminders became very important, and writing down gratitude. And I'm sure a lot of you guys do this already, or you've heard about doing this. I tried every day to find 3 things that I was grateful for and to write those down. Sometimes it was the birds that were there chirping outside of my window, making me happy. And I just loved the sound, and they brought joy into my life. It was cuddling up with my daughter. Maybe I couldn't sing to her or read to her anymore, but I could still cuddle up and watch Little Einsteins with her, and I found out I really liked that show, so that was a plus. And then things like standing up from the toilet unassisted, because that's at the point where I was. So I wrote it down so that I could reflect on these things on the days that I didn't feel like writing things down. I couldn't find a thing to be happy about. And I would reflect on those things and realize, well, today's not a great day, but there are things to be joyous about in my life. And I kept trying to feed that positivity on my shoulder. The other thing I did, my brain was on fire because I was on prednisone. And can anybody relate to that? Up all night, talking to my friends online in my support groups. And I couldn't sleep. My body couldn't move. But I needed to feed this, and I needed to feed it good stuff because it just wanted to feed the weeds. All my thoughts were going into the weeds. And so I had to feed my brain with good things. I had to feed my mind. Great books, great movies, anything that was uplifting, I devoured. Meditating, playing words with friends, probably with a lot of you that are here. I played Scrabble with Dr. Weiss when I was in the hospital after my thymectomy, and I was all morphined out. But, anything that could take my mind off of my situation was incredibly helpful. I also had to gravitate towards happy tribes, and of course, this is my very happy tribe right here. I heard Andrew talking about tribes the other night, and I was like, yes, that's it. That's part of it. Surrounding yourself with people that can pull you up, and people that are uplifting and people that are supportive. My daughter was, always my big cheerleader and champion. That's not to say that we just push away people that are going through hardships, or that we can give away our 2-year-old when she's throwing a tantrum. We still have to deal with certain life aspects. But I think we all know those people that are just really chronically negative and kind of drain us and drain our energy. Do we all know people like that? Yeah. And so my time, awake and up was so limited, I didn't have the energy to spend time with people like that. So I really had to learn my boundaries And I had to, give them compassion and support, but also know when I needed support and I needed to be around the happy, uplifting people. It can be really hard with MG. I know a lot of us lose friendships. I see it because I've had it for over 30 years. I kind of see it as a great clearinghouse and blessing in a way, because I've cleared out some people that I probably didn't need in my life. I hate to say that, but and I've ended up, I'm very fortunate to have ended up with wonderful, supportive people, and I've met many more people here at this conference that I now consider part of my tribe, my happy tribe, and I'm so thankful to know all of you. I also really advise animal therapy if you like animals. If you don't, then no. But I know you guys get this aspect because I've seen pictures online of people's dogs, cats, parts of your family. I have seen pictures of your horses, geese, pigs, everything. And it really seems to bring a lot of people joy. So I advise including them in your happy tribe. I also look to people that I could find inspiration. When I was going through a lot of this, I think Venus Williams was diagnosed with Sjogren's, and I would watch her playing tennis and think, gosh, her joints have to be screaming right now. I can't believe she's out there doing it. And I would think about Christopher Reeve and how his life changed so dramatically, but he gave his life to his last breath to giving back to other people. And it created a life of enrichment and joy and meaning. And I thought, gosh, if he can do that, I can stay positive through this. And of course, you might recognize some of the other people in those pictures. I have a lot of online heroes, MGers that I have met. Those aren't all of them, because I can't fit all of them on there. They're just the ones I got permission to use their photos. So, but we can find inspiration from people everywhere. I also needed some scene changes because I was pretty much in my bedroom. I couldn't really go much of anywhere. Maybe I could go to the living room, but that was about it. So what do you do to change your scene? Obviously, I couldn't travel. But what we can do is brighten up a room. Nobody can stand paint fumes in here, I'm sure. So we're not going to be painting, but you can change pictures in the room, flowers at the bedside table. I would open up the windows and let the sun shine in. And it was, I just needed that sunlight and happiness around. Great music. Candles lit, as long as you're not going to fall asleep with them lit. But changing the sense and sound and the things that we see all around us can be very healing as well. And then creating. I'm not a crafty person, so there wasn't much I could do but color in a coloring book with my daughter, which I got really, really, really good at. But anything, if you are a creative person, and I see so many people online doing it, creative outlets are so healing. We have people that are making jewelry, that are making these masterpieces of art, writing poetry, making music, and even writing novels, right? So if they can do that stuff, we can create and have these positive outlets. And celebrating the small victories was so important in my journey. I couldn't run a marathon, but I couldn't run a marathon before, so that's okay, and I probably never will. But what my marathon was when I could brush my teeth. I could walk to the bathroom and I could brush my teeth, and then I could walk to my kitchen, and then I could walk to my mailbox. And then I could walk down the street, I could read and sing to my daughter, which changed everything for me. My huge moment, my marathon, my gold medal moment was when I could get in a car, drive by myself, and go to CVS to get my medications. That was that was my big moment, that I was so happy and so proud of myself. And now I'm celebrating here with you guys too. I would review those small victories, because there were some days that I was still in bed, but I'd say, well, I'm still in bed, but I did get to brush my teeth today, and I did get to wash my face. So when we recognize the small moments, we can also review them and appreciate the really small things in life. 10 years ago, I couldn't imagine that I would be standing anywhere, let alone here speaking to you guys today. On dark days, I knew that I just had to mentally survive. It was a point of mental survival. My brain had to keep me going until my body could catch up and my body could move again. And I had a lot of faith in my doctor that he was going to make sure that I could move again. And I had to keep my brain on that instead of what I was going through. I'm still challenged by MG and other life factors, as we all are, but now I have a toolbox to kind of reach into, and I might modify it. There might be something else that you guys suggest here today that I could be doing a little bit differently or a little more of. So that toolbox might be modified, but it's a toolbox of positivity that I can reach into and get a little hope from. So I still give myself time to grieve and be angry and upset when I'm faced with the challenge, but then I take a deep breath and I tell myself, I got this. And I see a lot of you guys doing this. I'm not the only one that's just moving forward with a life with MG. We have MGers around the world that are living strong and positively, using some of the tools that I've talked about, using some of their own. They're choosing how to fill their glass on their own terms. They're practicing self-care, gratitude, feeding their minds, hanging with happy tribes. They've got their animal therapy going. They're getting their own scene changes, taking vacations, traveling. They're creating, and they're changing I can't, or you can't, when people tell you you can't do that, and they're changing it all to I can, sometimes in their own way. We have MGers like Leah Nash that has a radio show on living positively with MG. We have people here like Roger Morse that when he was faced with the challenge, he couldn't run anymore. I think many of you know this story. He couldn't run marathons anymore, and it was something very important to him. So he modified that. He started coaching, and has it been rewarding, Roger? And so even if we can't do something exactly the way we envisioned it, sometimes we can shift it a little bit and do it a little bit differently and get even more joy out of it than we did doing it the old way. So the question to you is simple. How do you choose to fill your glass? Because it's your choice. This is the time to just add pen to paper and think about making a commitment to yourself. You can pick from some of the things that I talked about that I did, that you want to make a commitment or write down 3 things that you're grateful for, or you can write I can statements and change something that you didn't think you could do into an I can and figure out a way to make that happen and what that looks like. And you can have some time to do that in your books. We can take some question and answers. I also put some little tokens like this on your table, and you can kind of pick through them, and they each have one word on them. So when you write your goals, pick out one of these, and they're on all the tables, so if there's not enough on your table, you can go to another table and look. Pick out one of these, keep it in your pocket, put it on a necklace, put it on your keychain, in your medicine cabinet, wherever you need a little daily reminder of, you can live a positive life with MG and under extreme challenges. It's all up to you. It's your choice. We don't get a choice in the disease, but we still get to choose how we live.